All right, what is up, everybody? This is Will, and this is the Restaurant Owners Uncorked podcast brought to you by us here at Schedulefly. Super simple web-based restaurant employee scheduling software backed by legendary customer service, like to the point that my personal cell phone is on our public website on like 3 pages. And if you call it or text it, you'll get me on this flip phone here. And I'm always happy to talk to you about Schedulefly and help any way I can. And then we also have a low price point because we're not backed by venture capital or private equity. We own this business. We've been able to actually never raise our prices in 18 years. So simple software, legendary service, low price point. And if you are on pencil and paper or Excel,
Hmm.
we can make life easier for you as an owner, as a manager, and certainly for the employees who these days really expect to have everything at their fingertips, like it or not. It is an employee benefit, really, if nothing else these days. Uh, and also, if you are on another scheduling software, you may be very happy, but you also might be paying a lot of money for bells and whistles and features that you don't need and don't use. And we would love to have a chance to earn your business. So call me, text me. My number's right there on the website on like 3 pages, schedulefly.com, or you can sign up for a 30-day free trial anytime. No questions asked, no credit card needed. We keep everything simple. We have a monthly pricing. We earn your business every month. You're welcome to try it for free. Call me, text me anytime. That is Schedulefly, schedulefly.com. All right, now let's get into Restaurant Owners Uncorked, episode number 600 and something. I know we passed 600 recently. 15 years of doing this, and every episode is always a lot of fun. And Ken is holding up our first book. Oh my God, dude, I got chills right now. I can't believe that you're showing me that book, man. Man, I'm gonna get a tear on deck here, dude. That was our first book. We wrote that in 2010, so that's how long we've been sharing the stories of restaurant owners, and we self-published that Restaurant Owners Uncorked book, and Ken has it. So, Ken, gosh, thank you, man. That really took me by surprise.
Sure, man.
Introduce yourself if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. My name's Ken Stemke. I'm owner of a restaurant in Libertyville, Illinois called Main Street Social. So we are a upscale Italian American restaurant, wine centric. We actually started a winery before we opened the restaurant 8.5 years ago. Started a winery in Napa 3 years ago. So we sell 11 or 12 of our own wines through the restaurant.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
That's awesome.
unique, yeah.
Uh, well, look, these conversations just kind of flow like water. I don't really have any agenda other than just wanting to share your story. But the one thing I always ask every single guest is to just get us started with where and when your hospitality journey all began.
Sure. It actually began in high school. So, to get money for college, I worked full time in a couple of white tablecloth restaurants as a busser. So, junior and senior year. Um, so my first introduction to properly cooked food and at a very high level. And between that and it enabled me as a 16, 17-year-old to in a customer service position like that to get comfortable with myself, get comfortable dealing with people, and sometimes difficult situations. And I loved it. So I did not go into the industry. I went into finance and accounting. So a little bit of public accounting, a lot of commercial banking, but a lot of entertaining in some of the greatest restaurants around. So between that and the love of cooking, I always had a itch to do something, and I was lucky enough to open up a restaurant in my town here that I've lived in. We opened it up about 8.5 years ago, and my my standard answer when people say, "Well, how'd you get in the restaurant business?" is I lost a bet, because the numbers aren't good. There's no barriers to entry. Any goofballs with a little bit of money like us can get into the business. but especially with some of my old banking and accounting colleagues, they're like, "Wait, you did what?" So, but I got the itch early on when I worked in restaurants.
Hmm. Man. Okay. I definitely want to ask you about your career in banking. But let's go back to the early days because you said something that it tells me that you unknowingly had this wiring that I think is critical to owning a restaurant. I mean, it's like necessary, which is you said it puts you in uncomfortable situations
Hmm.
where you had to learn new skills and how to manage challenging situations. First of all, that's rare in a 16 to 17-year-old. So that was a sign early on that, that you had that in you. I think it's probably more rare than ever these days with 16 and 17-year-olds. So I want to talk to you about that, about what you see in the staff these days.
Hmm.
I think it's harder than ever to get. I mean, being a parent of three who's been through this, I think it's harder than ever to get kids to, get off of screens and get into interpersonal situations that are uncomfortable, and view that as a positive, not as a negative, right?
Yeah.
But that set the stage that early on because I don't think it's just I've talked to so many restaurant owners, and that book you held up, I mean, dude, when I was writing that book and I was first talking to restaurant owners, all I was trying to do, well, not all I was trying to do. One of the things I was trying to do was learn everything I could because in my mind at the time, I mean, yeah, 15 years ago when I did that, 16, I was like, I'm going to own a restaurant one day. And
You froze.
me, you got me.
You're back.
Okay, I lost you for a second.
That it.
Yeah, my connection may not be the best. But I'm gonna actually hang tight one second. I'm gonna pause this and move.
Sure.
Okay, this hopefully will be a little bit better. But I wanted to learn how to run a restaurant. And I thought, well, I'll just talk to a bunch of people and find the common threads. But what I learned is there's something in there you got to have, I think, in your DNA to do this and to be able to just navigate all of the challenges because it is a really, really challenging industry and it calls on probably you need to master or learn as many different skill sets
Hmm.
about as many different aspects of business than you probably do in any business. But certainly viewing uncomfortable situations as opportunities for growth is like a huge, huge piece of any successful restaurant owner that I've come across.
Yeah, it's I guess a different day and age now. Um, and some of the similarly aged kids may not have been going through that. Um, it's coping skills,
Mm,
and maybe there's a little less advancement in that area today than there used to be.
yeah, yeah. Um, I think so. I mean, are you seeing that? Like, are you seeing that in maybe even in the last 5 years, the difference in just this generation and their ability to interact with people on an interpersonal level, to answer phones, to make eye contact, to, just sort of the things that you and I would have kind of grown up with, like it's what we did. And it's not saying that we're better. It's just that, I mean, we didn't have these devices, attached to us all the time.
Distractions, yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough, man. I'm still trying to figure that out. So, if you figure it out, let me know. But one of the advantages we've had over the years is we've had more of a seasoned staff.
Yeah.
So we've had less challenges in that regard. So, for instance, our servers are probably average age is 40.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So Yeah, so a little different situation for us. We're lucky enough to attract a little more seasoned crowd, and we've got probably 10 people in the restaurant that have been here since the first year.
Oh,
So, we're
that's
very
amazing. That's
fortunate in
amazing.
that regard.
Yeah, okay. So I should have assumed that. You got a hire in place. You got veteran, seasoned staff, not a lot of drama, probably, people that are pros at what they do. And I mean, I'm sure there is drama, but maybe less than if you had a bunch of like 18 to, 25-year-olds running around.
Sure.
Well, okay, man. So, but how long? So you what? How long were you in banking?
Uh, so I retired in 18, so I was 35 years.
35 years.
Um, yeah, lucky enough to be a partner in a bank at the end, and we sold the bank, and got a little play money to construct the restaurant. But worked with small business, lower middle market companies every day, consulting them. So
Yep.
it was from that perspective, it was fantastic, where you learned a little bit from each client in a lot of different industries. And the idea with the restaurant is to bring some of those best practices to bear in the restaurant.
Uh, I have a background in banking, and I had banks as my customers in my first business. So I'll take a slight detour here and ask you, like,
Hmm.
so you were in commercial banking or business banking.
Yeah.
Um, what bank were you with?
So, well, I was with a few of the larger banks here in Chicago throughout my career, Harris, LaSalle.
Okay.
But the last one I was at was a very entrepreneurial bank called American Chartered Bank, and we were started in '87 and grew to be basically the leading bank in the small business, lower middle market industry here in Chicago area.
Okay.
So yeah, so it was great. It was everyone was an owner, and it was introducing a little capitalism to banking.
So Harris Bank, LaSalle Bank, those were former customers of ours. Do you ever remember
Hmm.
a company? Did you ever come across a sales call prep tool called First Research?
It sounds familiar. I
That
think
was
we had
our
that. I
business.
think we had that as I'm guessing maybe it was Harris.
Uh-huh. You did.
Yeah. Okay.
That was our former business.
Hmm.
So that was like industry call prep, right? Like Cliff Notes for industry research for commercial bankers for sales call prep.
Right.
Like you're going to call on a plastics manufacturer, you don't know anything about that. You can go look like an idiot, or you can spend, 15, 20 minutes boning up and having good questions and knowing the
Yeah.
things to think about so that you can kind of relate. Yeah, that was so
Remember that.
that's what Schedulefly came from because we we sold that business to Dun& and Bradstreet in 2007, and the five of us, we've had some recent changes, but I mean, for 18 years, the five of us that were here at Schedulefly, we all came from First Research,
Hmm.
and we, I mean, so this is a totally different industry. Of course, my one of my former partners, Wes, used to write the schedule in a restaurant and knew what you needed if you didn't want to write your schedule on Excel, which is what he did. And so he built Schedulefly as like, this is what I would need if I were writing a schedule and wanted to do it online. And then that's kind of how this whole thing started. Um, but yeah, so I had to ask about that because all those,
Hmm.
I mean, we had like 95 of the top 100 banks in the country at the time, as customers when we sold it. And then as soon as we sold it, we learned what happens when you sell your business and
Ha.
and you have an earn out and all the like secret sauce that made your business great, which is why they wanted to buy you. They unwittingly start stripping out all that secret sauce,
Yeah.
and
Culture clash, right? Culture
big
clash.
time, dude, big time. I mean, it was
Yeah.
not
We had
like
the same thing.
you have 40 people in this small team, and I mean, to me that's big, like, but we had 40 people, and we're bought by a publicly traded company, so you can imagine how much they cared about our, our fun culture and all this
Yeah.
stuff that went away. So, but it was cool
Well,
because
where are you based? Where are you calling
North
from
Carolina,
right now?
North
Hmm?
Carolina.
Ah, I gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but lesson learned because I mean, a lot of businesses came out of that though. I mean, like just like your restaurant did, right? Like, so a lot of people were like, no way, we're not going to be a part of this. And so people went off and started other businesses and so
Hmm.
it wound up being a good thing, but, good lesson about what happens. I don't care what they tell you when they're buying your business. They'll tell you whatever you want to hear, but
Giant.
don't,
We had a
don't,
giant culture clash. Bunch of hungry capitalists, entrepreneurs, and traditional staid bankers. And
yeah.
boy, I had a lot of screaming matches. And after a year, we agreed to part ways. But I had already started the restaurant,
Okay,
so
so you got that good. So you really did have that itch, man. You started quickly. All right, good.
yeah.
Well,
But my whole dream had always been to get to the point where I get out of my career and operate a few businesses. And the key was starting them before I retired or got retired. So we started making wine in probably 2013 was our first vintage. So it's been probably a dozen years. And then we opened the restaurant in 17, and then I got out of banking in 18. And part of all that, though, applying that to this business is the public accounting experience too.
yeah,
So a lot of times well, you can probably list the challenges and shortcomings of current restaurateurs. They may know food and the floor, but may fall down in the financial and accounting area. They don't know where they're at. General business practices. So it's important for any restaurant to have that element covered. And if you don't have it with you and your partner, find it with your accountant or your banker or your attorney. Have that
yeah.
nice um, bullpen of people you can ask questions to.
A very important piece of this, no doubt about it. Yeah, coming into it with that skill set helps a ton.
Boy,
That
especially
is,
during COVID, when we
ooh,
were shut down and we are doing carry out only for 2.5 months, we had the daily cash flows going and, what bill do we pay today? And, we had actually prepped for three possible outcomes depending on what the governor chose to do. And when he did, it's like, all right, that's plan B. And we went right at it. So, um, yeah, you need some kind of, as best you can, ability to plan things out, although things are pretty unpredictable.
you had a lot of experience in that. What do you tell your peers or people listening? I mean, you touched on this, but like, is is it like what advice would you give to somebody who's planning on starting a restaurant and maybe doesn't have that financial experience?
Yeah, once I get past the initial don't do it, uh, I just had this conversation um, out west a couple days ago, and having some dinner at a oyster bar out in Vegas. And there's a guy next to me and his gal, and he's from Washington State. Yeah, boy, I've been thinking about opening a restaurant, and I immediately, mentioned those skill sets. Get somebody that's good with financial and accounting and the books, and get a somebody that's actually operated a restaurant or at least managed a floor because it's tough enough as it is. I mean, think about the complexity of the business. It's a hospitality business. That simplifies it too much. It's actually, it's food manufacturing as well.
Yeah.
So, we had restaurant people that we had brought in to run the place, and um, you had certain skills, but you need to understand you're producing a product every day. You're manufacturing it, so you got to know what your cost is. You got to know what your margins are, and it's not only manufacturing, it's like a job shop because, each dish you make is a separate project. We're not making 10,000 widgets to then
Yeah.
send out to the market. Every dish has got to be manufactured properly. So, it's amazing, amazing business from that standpoint.
But very complex. Very complex. Yes. Are you familiar with there's a there's a couple of companies. One is you probably know of Restaurant 365.
Yep.
There is a lesser known uh sort of like our version of that, like Restaurant Systems Pro is a great company that we highly recommend to restaurant owners to help with a lot of that. So
Mm,
they're sort of like Restaurant 365, like the smaller unknown version that has all the service elements built in that
sure.
R365 really doesn't. Um, that's when I always say on this topic, I'm always like, you got to talk to Restaurant Systems Pro. I mean, they're phenomenal. Their customers have really good margins, manage their business well. Um, their customers have been with them like an average of 12 years. So like
Mm.
that's when I'm always like, dude, if you're not already really, really dialed in on all the financial fronts and understand that, like you should talk to Restaurant Systems Pro. They're really good at what they do. But that's a huge piece. People get in and, oh, I'm a good cook. Cool. Good for you. Keep cooking for your friends.
Yeah,
Uh,
right. Yeah, when I have a party of 15 people, well, try spitting out dishes every 12 minutes for 200, It's like, well,
exactly. 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 But here's the thing. There, there always have been, and there always will be people that just are like, I got to do this. Like you had it in your DNA. There's a lot of people that are like, it's something I really have to do and I have to try. And what we hope, through this podcast and other resources happens is that people get the advice and the tools that they need to give themselves the best chance of success because I don't know what the real failure rates are. I mean, whatever they are, they're high, right? For like the first
in
year,
in banking, we
right?
understood it as 80% fail in the first 2 years.
First 2 years. So it doesn't have to be that high.
Mhm.
It's certainly never going to be, a small number, a single digit number, but part of it is just that people don't understand the complexities of it and don't understand all of the different I mean, every piece of the economy touches a restaurant, plus you're managing people and you're managing people that turn over frequently. You're in a good situation, like a lot of the higher end places where you do have at least veteran staff that aren't going to come and go on a whim as quickly as often. Um, but these are all things that if you're planning properly and you have the right resources and you have the right team and the right advisors will drastically increase at least your chances of success. There's no guarantees. Um, but I feel like a lot of people go into this really naive to um, how many things you have to get right, and they don't have the right tools and they don't have the right, external team members. And that just is like a recipe for disaster.
And understand the time effort that it takes. I mean, I probably in any business, people see from the outside, maybe that any business ownership, and restaurants in particular, it's visible, it's somewhat glamorous, some people would think, I guess, from the outside. Um, but the detail, um, any given day, my to-do list has 30 items on it, and stuff you can't even foresee or think of. Even just with the physical property, something goes out, every week that you have to deal with. Um, weather, systems, POS system. Yeah, the list goes on and on. So you need to be prepared to be like all in or hire somebody that's similarly motivated and all in. For me, I love it. Um, the 8 years has been, we had restaurant people that we brought in, helped build it, brought in the concept from some Chicago restaurants, tweaked it, and they're all gone now. So, um, I'm directing everything now, and I feel after 8 year learning process, I feel really good about it. We just led a new menu change that we're going to release next Tuesday. And the key to that was the empowerment of people that we already had. They were
Mm.
not in a position where they were allowed really to, it was very tightly controlled management. And once we made that change this past February and empowered these people, they got excited and they enjoyed coming to work and they weren't walking on eggshells. And, I assumed we were going to bring in a consultant because we needed to get freshen up, get a menu change. And we, we ended up creating, myself and our two kitchen folks and our acting general manager, over 60 dishes that we brought out on weekends. And we were able to do it without hiring a consultant, and very, very, very proud of them. But, empowerment's a pretty, pretty significant tool.
Empowerment, which is offered based on trust and delegation and a willingness to let go and let others step up, which can be hard
Mm.
for an owner often, but tends to be with the right team in place uh, can be very fruitful for the business. That's awesome that y'all did that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so you had people that you brought in from the get-go, but have you been, I mean, I'm assuming you've been there and actively involved from the get-go as well.
Yeah, basically running the business. So all
Yeah.
the non-floor stuff, um, managing our
Mm.
managers,
Yeah.
weekly management meetings, uh, and then, but over time, our operations guy departed November 2020. So we distributed those duties, took over a lot of that. And then our floor manager departing. Um, now I'm there at least every day, at night, probably 4 nights a week. Um, but as my folks are taking on more and more, I'm working differently. So I find that I'm working on the restaurant more than in the restaurant, which is critical to our future.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Now,
Absolutely.
my acting general manager would say, well, when do I get to do that? Because she's taking over a lot of the stuff, but that too will come in time.
Well, um, so 8.5 years in, um, how are things how are things going just there locally with the
Yeah.
local economy, the local restaurants? Like, what's changing? What are you excited about?
Yeah, I would say at least Illinois, um, Chicago in particular. We're not in the city of Chicago. For restaurants is challenging. Chicago did away with the tip credit, and they're feeling the effects of that. Restaurants are closing for that and other reasons. Restaurant groups are opening up restaurants outside of the city because outside of the city, there's still a tip credit. It's a big deal. And Illinois proposed it, and I wrote letters to everyone I could, and it got killed. So that would have cost
Explain
us.
explain
Oh,
that,
sure.
like why the city did that and why the state was considering doing that.
Yeah. So, and California's done it, and Washington's done it, and the labor. How would I phrase this? the labor movement, um, the people in, for instance, the city council of Chicago believe that they, maybe for getting purpose of getting more votes, probably thought that they were doing uh, workers who may be downtrodden a favor by getting rid of the tip credit. So in Illinois, our minimum wage is $15. Tip credit is 60% of that. So we pay our tipped employees $9. In the city, everyone gets 15. That's a significant cost increase. Um, for us, if it was instituted all at once, it would be $60,000 a year. Now, there's tipped employees out there that, are the highest paid people in a restaurant.
Yeah.
And another factor they didn't consider is that I saw information from either National Restaurant Association or maybe Illinois Restaurant Association that 90% of tipped employees are in favor of keeping the tipped credit because the outcome of that is less jobs, less restaurants open, et cetera. So in our area in particular, we're about 30 miles north of Chicago. Lake County's a wealthier area, for sure. Lake County is one of the wealthiest, probably top 10, at least top 20 wealthiest counties in the country. We're in a good spot. I wouldn't call it recession proof, but um, Libertyville itself we have about 15 restaurants in a 4 block stretch. So we're kind of the place to go. And so that builds some immunity, but it's imperfect. Um, there's this year, there's less people going out. Our external factors are tariffs, uncertainty, and everybody's feeling it. And, continued high costs. Um, we pull from a very wide area and they're not all on the wealthier side. And, we'll see less of those people because their grocery bills are still high. They can't afford what they perceive as a luxury. So April was extremely difficult, and that was the height of tariffs, no tariffs, 100%, 1,000%, 2%, and it scared people. It scared me as well. We were down 23%. So it's settled down somewhat from that. We're down 6% for the year, and that's pretty common, or maybe even slightly better than most restaurants that I know in the area. So those are
Yeah.
the current headwinds. Um, you know, Labor costs had stabilized probably a year and a half to 2 years ago. Food costs were all still chasing. Tariffs will increase, will add to that with Mexican produce, um, the glass that our wine bottles are in, um, French wine, et cetera, et cetera. Now we scare all our labor away. That will start going up again as well. So in for instance, the agricultural industry, 40% of workers are undocumented. You just can't wipe that out and expect the industry to continue. So um, maybe we can deal with those issues in a better fashion than we are. But if you scare away our hardest working people, we're going to have another spike in labor costs. And, at what point in time do restaurants that maybe aren't as successful as us, do they decide to close the doors?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so hope that answered your question, maybe.
Oh, it answered it very well. There's a lot to unpack there. The starting with the tip credit. I think whether it's for votes or whether it's for good intentions that can lead to bad outcomes, those kinds of policies often are designed to theoretically help workers. But the problem is, um, I mean, only chains can absorb that stuff. They can absorb like
Mhm.
changes at scale. But independent restaurants can't. Um,
Outstanding point for sure.
right. So it's a weird thing. Like you see this going on out in California where they jack up the minimum wage so high that, that a lot of independent restaurants are like, well, we can't pay this. Now the big chains can. And so it's a weird thing where it's only helping these massive companies that, theoretically the people that are putting those policies into place are looking out for the little guy, so to speak, but that hurts the little guy.
It's tough. You need the independent part of the restaurant scene in this country. And in Chicago in particular, we have a great independent restaurant scene. And, if everything becomes somewhat homogenized, that's not good.
I contend that you can't have a great community, whether it's a big
Mm.
city or small town like where I live, if you don't have great independent restaurants. Independent restaurants are one of the key factors in having a great community. And independent being that they're unique to that community. The money you spend at those restaurants stays in that community, which keeps
Mhm.
people there, and nobody moves somewhere because they have a bunch of chain restaurants.
Mm.
You'll never ask somebody, why is Chicago great? Or why is Waxhaw, North Carolina great where I live? Nobody's ever going to say, oh, well, we have so many chains and like, McDonald's and all that. 'Cause I mean, like they're fine and they have their place, but like that's not what makes people want to move somewhere. A big part of what makes people want to move somewhere is there's something, unique about that place, and it has a lot of great people with great culture, and you can't
Mhm.
have that without, a lot of small businesses and a lot of independent restaurants. That's what makes places unique. And so it's tough when these policies get put in place that while theoretically may be designed to help them, it actually hurts them. And a lot of times it's because the people that are putting them in place have never actually run a business.
Mm.
Uh, or maybe they just know if I say these things, I get votes and, whatever, then I don't know. But that stuff eventually has to come back around. I mean, eventually, like people wise up to that. So you raise a lot of really great points, Ken, because these are issues that while the tip credit may be in certain states now, those things tend to make their way around over time. And certainly what you're talking about you know, uh, with tariffs and, with undocumented workers. And I mean, these things are affecting, or could potentially affect everybody. So it's hard, man, because it seems like the independent restaurant industry is extremely fragmented, right? So there's no unifying voice. I mean, you take the National Restaurant Association, and I don't mean anything negative about them. I mean, but they're like pretty much, run by the big brands, the big chains, and that's like they tend to have their interests most at heart. So it becomes a little bit more challenging for independents to have a good, strong, unified voice, whereas 70% of all restaurants, give or take, are independents.
Right, right. There is a group, independent restaurant group, I believe, that's kind of growing in stature,
The
which is
IRC,
important.
Independent
Yeah.
Restaurant Coalition.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, I mean that started during COVID, and it's necessary because
Yeah.
a lot of even the state associations sometimes, depending on the state, they're influenced heavily by the big players who have the ability to invest into making sure that the lobbyists get things passed that that they can absorb, but the independents are more of a challenge. Um, well, I I'm so fascinated with how things move, and like swing back and forth on
Hmm.
pendulums. I mean, we've seen an absurd amount of money over the last decade invested into restaurant technology, um, well, money was free for a decade, so it was easy. Anybody could raise, you just had to have an idea and a minimum viable product, and you could probably raise millions of dollars. There's a lot of restaurant technology that's not designed by restaurant people and not funded by restaurant people, telling restaurant people that this is what you need to make your restaurant better. And I see restaurants starting to pull back from that a little bit because it's like, you, like there's only so much tech that you can deploy in a restaurant to
Mm.
make the restaurant success. I mean, I'm saying this as an owner of a restaurant technology company, but I mean, there's just only so much. I mean, it's really ultimately there's so many other factors at play, and it's a people business. Um, but I think um, consumers are beginning to. It started a little bit during COVID, but more and more, I think, people are starting to um, realize that all of this tech, and I'm not talking about like restaurant tech. I'm talking about personal tech at this point. We're so immersed in it so often, and we've just kind of gone away from interpersonal relationships, and um, people are realizing that's a problem. And I think and hope that people will lean more into spending time away from their homes and in restaurants. Because frankly, when you're at home, you can't get away from it, but you can go to a restaurant and kind of
Mm.
be, let's leave our phones or, let's leave them in the car or whatever and have that like that time that we need and we all know it. But for a long time, we haven't gotten enough of it. And I just, as a parent, I hear more and more of this.
Mm.
And, I hear it more from my friends that we've got to cut back on all this tech and we've got to spend time as a family, doing things together that's intentional. And what better place to do that than a restaurant, right?
Absolutely. We and other restaurants like us, we're building community. And it absolutely fits in with what you've been saying about, why do people go to a place to live? And for our town, it's schools and it's downtown Libertyville, universally. Um, yeah, so we need to make, just talking to one of the trustees this morning, we need to make that, and they do support our restaurants, which is awesome. So you need a supportive uh, local government structure, easier when it's a small town. Um, and you grew up with like a lot of the people. So, um, but uh, you need, as a group, we need to be a force. And, one of my discussions was locally, we need some kind, which tried to start before COVID, and then everything stopped. Here, and maybe there's something for other towns to think about, is a downtown restaurant coalition.
Hmm.
And, we can get our 15 to 20 restaurants together and collectively market and address issues and share resources. So it's the fight of the independent man, right? You can't
It,
do it alone.
Boulder's working on that right now. Boulder, Colorado. I was just talking to a
Mm.
restaurant the other day. They're putting that together. I think that's a great. You got to. I remember in that book actually, there's a guy named Scott Maitland who owns Top of the Hill Restaurant and Brewery in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and I'll never forget. He said, I don't really see myself in the restaurant business as much as I see myself in the Chapel Hill business." And his whole point
Mm.
was like he's an ambassador for Chapel Hill. He's ingrained in the community. Like you have to make that investment of time, of energy, of money, of relationships to help foster success in that town and help that town be a successful community. And then the byproduct is the restaurant, has a better likelihood of being successful. Um, so I always thought that was just I mean,
Yeah,
that's that's from 15 years ago, but I remember him saying that, and I was like, that's a really
wise today. Yeah.
more than ever. Now it's like an important part of it, but it really is
So
like you have to be. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to give you a schedule fly note. So as we've gone through these tradition or transitions, and I consider the restaurant, we're in like Main Street Social 2.0 phase right now, which started 2 years ago. I am now the schedule fly guy. So we had a manager kind of age out of the industry, and um I keep you said something about put away the paper and the even the spreadsheets and use a tool, and oh boy, yeah, trying to for me, I need a budgeting tool,
Yeah,
and it's got budgeting features in there. I've got costs in there, and I need that to be able to um, apply to weekly, even daily cost budgeting. And then I need to um, get everybody to buy in. We've had it from the start, I believe,
yeah.
but we haven't used everything that it can do. And it's
There's a lot
very
of
super intuitive. I
yeah.
mean, I sat down with my guy 15 minutes and that was it. I'm like, got it. So super intuitive. So well done with the how you guys developed it.
We try to keep it simple.
Yeah,
Document storage. We have people that use us instead of Dropbox. Fly notes is great. Like there's a lot of things in there. It's a very robust tool while also being, very, very simple, hopefully.
exactly. So I want to post stuff on there. I send something out on paid time off rules, and I sent out an email, and it's well, no, one of the intentions is posted on some kind of universal site, and that's Schedulefly.
Yeah. Yep. Uh, wh- what point of sale do you use?
Uh, we use if I don't know if they're watching. We use the same one we started with 8.5 years ago, which was the POS system my restaurant people were used to, where they came from.
Uh,
So it's not used by many people. Uh, it's a point of frustration, and I'm targeting early next year to change that out. The report, I'm a numbers guy. The reporting,
yeah.
just is poor. Um, I've seen, I know the systems out there that are available. I know, you know, from a server standpoint, having those handhelds and not gathering at the POS station and putting in 5 orders at once, taxing the kitchen, instead putting in those orders as you're taking them, the kitchen will be
Yeah.
very happy.
Yep.
So we're working on all that. So it's an area lacking for us for sure.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And it doesn't
Uh,
integrate with OpenTable. Doesn't, yeah.
okay.
You're breaking up a little bit.
Yeah, we
You
broke up a
back?
little bit there. You said it
There you go.
doesn't integrate with Airtable. Okay. Um, would you mind if I follow up with you offline about some point of sale companies that we know and trust to take good care of customers?
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've had discussions. I mean, at least in our area, Toast is the big player now.
Yeah.
With a big player comes cost. And then Spot On's been pretty aggressive.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, willing to talk.
I'll follow up with you offline about that. Yeah, before you get too far along the road with Toast, I'd love to share some thoughts. So
Sure.
I'll follow up with you about that.
Sure,
Uh,
absolutely.
well, I I've always started with the journey, right? Which we did. How did this all get started? Recently, I started doing something here at the end, Ken, which I think is sticking. So I think I'm going to do it with you, which is this.
Yeah,
Um, if you had a room full of your customers and you were up talking to them, or if they were all listening to this, like, what would you say to a room full of your customers?
Wow. Um, so I don't know if you can see, I got one of the problems of being in a small business is you have like 1,000 ideas for every 20 you can implement.
Yeah,
And somewhere on there is surveys, guest surveys, and we have a wine club. I want to do a wine club survey. Um, what would I say to them? Um, I would want to ask them questions.
yeah.
What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What would you like to see? What don't you want? What do you not want to see? Um, I'm not sure I'd have any message for them. They
Just
don't want to hear about the back room stuff and behind the scenes and all that crap. Because then no.
no, you'd want to. You're so what you're basically you're just you'd want to know how do we how do we keep getting better? How do we make life?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we've
How,
done a lot of that informally. And I put a Facebook post up last week announcing the new menu was coming. And, basically my format was, you said we needed to freshen up the menu. We heard you. We, you know, you said we needed to up our game. We got up to 4.8 on open table, and we
nice.
need what they call specials. We call them featured items. And I said we've tasted 60 new dishes, and we've done 40 of those in the last 3 to 4 months. So, we're doing a better job of listening now, and I don't think you can do that. There's people in this industry that are good at talking. I think maybe more need to be good at listening, and that's
Yes.
to staff as well. Because they're on the floor, they know what's working and what's not. So I don't know, kind of reversing this on you.
Mm. No, I mean you said it. What you're, you we're listening. Like we're listening. We hear you, and we're not just listening. We're doing. And
Yeah,
yeah, I love it, man. I love it. I'm sure your customers appreciate y'all very much, Ken. If you have a 4.8 on Open Table, that's, I tip my hat to that. That's impressive. And that means you guys are doing a great job. So congratulations on that.
thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for the business. Thanks for the nice,
Mhm.
compliments of Schedule Fly. Please thank your team. If you don't mind, if you have a second, shoot me an email with the address where I can mail y'all some hats and socks. I got some, some trucker hats, and we
All right.
got some fly. They say fly on them. Some tube socks.
Flyware,
Like,
some
yeah, man,
flyware.
they're comfortable. They're good. And then I'm asking everybody, including my guests now, if you don't mind, you can understand the importance of this. Give our podcast a 5-star rating when you have a chance, on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen. All of you listening, please do that. That's the more ratings we get, the more the algorithms put this great content in front of more people. And
Absolutely.
we are proud to have a top 5 restaurant owner podcast. We would love to have a top 3 or a top restaurant owner podcast one day. But either way, we do just because we have such great guests on here, we have great content, and we're proud of that. And
Hmm.
so we want that to be spread. So um,
Is
thank
there a way I can get a link to that? Tie it into our website to what we've done today?
absolutely. Yes. For sure. I'll take care of that for you. Yeah, send me that. Send me an email with your address and just a reminder to do that, Ken, and I'll take care of that
Yep.
for sure.
Cool.
All right, everybody, that is a wrap. Another episode uh, completed, and many more coming soon. And go by, as Ken's showing there, Restaurant Owners Uncorked. We wrote a second one, Restaurant Owners Uncorked Part 2. Those things took me quite a bit of time before the days of AI, so it might be time for a third one here sometime soon.
Wow. I got to catch up. I got to get the second one.
Yeah, man. Uh, Thank you, Ken. Appreciate you very much, man.
That was awesome. Well,
Y'all have a good one. See ya.